I think no one ever says it aloud, but we all feel it. At night, when the sun slides down behind the dense forest and the wind crawls through the empty streets, we live by rules that are never questioned. I was born in Millfield, a small town in Vermont, pressed between shadowy hills and a lake that swallows the moonlight whole. It is beautiful in the day. Tourists sometimes pass through in autumn, amazed by the golden leaves, but they never stay past dusk. Locals never ask them to. After dark, Millfield changes. The streets grow too quiet. The air feels heavy, almost wet, and every shadow seems to have weight. We have rules. We follow them without fail. No one is outside after the clock tower strikes 9. Windows are locked, curtains drawn tight, lights kept dim. You do not answer knocks at the door, no matter how familiar the voice sounds. I used to think these rules were old superstitions. My parents never explained, they only repeated them with that hollow tone that made me feel cold. When I was 12, I tried to peek out from my bedroom window at 9:15, thinking I could catch something strange. I remember the road under the amber street lamp. A tall man stood there, too tall, his head almost brushing the lamp. His arms were long and bent at angles that made my stomach hurt. He was staring at our house, but his face was wrong. It was smooth, as if carved from wax. I froze. His head tilted slowly, unnaturally, as if he heard my breath. Then the lights in my room flickered. My father slammed my door, his face pale. He told me if I ever looked out again after 9, we would not be safe. I never tried again. Now I am 22. I still live here because leaving is not easy. No one ever really leaves. They try. Their houses go for sale. Their cars are loaded, but they are seen walking the streets again within weeks. Quiet, eyes empty, moving like they forgot what they wanted. 2 nights ago, old Mr. Whitaker broke the rules. His wife said he went outside at 11, mumbling something about a missing dog. People heard him calling in the dark. The next morning the police found his shoes on the road near the lake. The shoes were still warm, as if he had just stepped out of them. There were no footprints leading away. The rules are not superstition, they are survival. And yet, last night, I heard something scratching at my window. I could not sleep after hearing the scratching at my window. The sound was faint, almost like a branch swaying in the wind, except there was no wind. Every house in Millfield has thick curtains for a reason. But I kept feeling something on the other side waiting for me to pull them back. The scratching stopped for a while. Then came a soft dragging noise across the wall. My breath caught in my throat. I counted the seconds in my head, afraid to move. That was when I heard my mother's voice outside. She was calling my name in the calm tone she always used when she wanted me to come downstairs. I almost answered. Almost. But the rules came flooding back to me. You do not respond. You do not speak. The voice outside might sound familiar, but it is not. I pressed my back against the wall and tried to block out the sound. The voice shifted. It became my father's, then my best friend's. Each one called my name in the same gentle way. My body shook so hard, my teeth hurt. When the clock tower struck midnight, everything went silent again. The kind of silence that does not feel empty, but watching at sunrise, I checked the outside of my house. There were no footprints, no marks, but on the wooden siding just under my window, there were 4 long scratches carved deep into the wood. Later that day I went to the town library, hoping to find something that explained all this. The librarian, Mrs. Ellis, gave me a strange look when I asked about the town's history. She hesitated, then led me to a locked cabinet. Her hands shook as she turned the key. Inside were old town records, yellowed papers, newspaper clippings. The earliest rules were mentioned in a journal from 1894. The entries spoke of nights when people vanished, of voices in the dark, and of figures taller than men that stood in the lamplight without casting shadows. One entry chilled me more than the rest. It was a single line written in smudged inkwents. "They know your name. They will keep calling until you answer." I left the library with that sentence burned into my mind. That night, I stuffed rags around the edges of my window and turned off every light in my room. I thought I would be safe. But at exactly 9:12, there was a knock on the front door. The knock was soft at first, almost polite. 3 taps, a pause, then 3 more. I stood frozen in the dark hallway. My parents were in their bedroom. I could hear the creak of the floor above, slow pacing, but no one came down. The knocking continued, each set of taps louder than the last. Our front door has no peephole. That is another rule. You do not look. But there is an old glass panel on the side, a warped piece of stained glass that distorts everything outside. Against my better judgment, I stepped closer. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I kept my eyes low, away from the panel. Then I heard my own voice calling from outside. It was exact, same pitch, same rhythm. The voice asked to be let in. I pressed my hands against my ears, but it kept speaking. The words grew stranger. It began to say things I had never spoken, my secrets, things I had thought but never told anyone. I could not breathe. I backed away slowly, my feet barely touching the floor. Upstairs, the pacing stopped. Then a floorboard groaned as if something heavy shifted its weight. The knocking stopped. The silence was worse. A faint scraping sound began at the back door. Something was moving around the house, dragging along the walls. The air felt thicker with each second, like the night itself was pressing closer. Then I saw the light. A dim, pale glow leaked in from the crack at the bottom of the front door. It was not the warm light of it was cold, almost blue, pulsing faintly, as if alive. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. A text message appeared on the screen from an unknown number. "Why are you hiding?" The letters burned into my mind. My vision blurred for a moment. When I looked again, there was another message. "Open the door." I dropped the phone. My breath came fast and shallow. The blue light under the door pulsed one last time, then faded into darkness, then faded into darkness. Somewhere out, I heard footsteps walking away, but the sound was wrong. Each step stretched too long, as if the legs taking them were far taller than they should be. I did not sleep that night. At dawn, I went to the back door to see if anything was there. The frost on the steps was undisturbed. The grass was still wet with dew. But in the thin layer of dirt along the foundation, I saw marks. Not footprints. Long, deep grooves, as if something had dragged its fingers through the earth while circling. The house, I felt, watched even in daylight. That afternoon, I decided to speak to someone who might know more than the old library journals. Millfield has a few people who are older than anyone seems able to explain. Mrs. Harlow, who lives on the edge of town near the lake, has been here longer than my parents have been alive. Her hair is pure white, her back bent, but her eyes are sharp in a way that unsettles me. Her house smelled of dried herbs and something faintly metallic. She let me in without asking why I was there, as if she already knew. "You heard them last night," she said. It was not a question. I nodded. She told me the rules were older than the town itself. The first settlers built their homes here because the soil was rich, the forest full of game. But something else lived here before them. It lived in the water, in the hills, in the spaces between night and morning. The rules are not for the people. They are a bargain. I asked her what would happen if someone broke them. Her gaze fixed on me with a sharpness that made my chest tighten. "They take you," she said. "Not all at once. They call first. They take pieces, your voice, your face, until there is nothing left that belongs to you." Before I could ask more, she stood and closed the conversation. "Do not open your door after 9. Do not answer when they call. And above all," she said, "never go to the lake after dark." On my way home, I could not stop glancing at the lake through the trees. The surface was calm, a mirror of silver sky, but I thought I saw something beneath it, a pale shape that drifted, just under the water. That night, the scratching returned. This time, it was at my bedroom door. The scratching was slow at first, a lazy drag of something sharp across wood. My bedroom door stood closed, the hallway beyond it dark. I sat frozen in bed, my eyes fixed on the thin line of shadow under the door. Then I saw it. A shape moved across the gap. Not feet, not anything shaped like feet. The scratching became tapping, soft at first, then louder, then a voice. It was my own voice again. Let me in. My throat tightened. My hands gripped the blanket so hard my knuckles ached. The voice grew quieter, as if leaning close to the door. Let me in. We can talk. I did not move. The handle turned. I bit down hard on my lip to keep from making a sound. The rules did not say what to do if they came inside. They only said to keep the doors locked. The handle stopped moving. The scratching began again, but this time it was higher, near the top of the door. Something was climbing. A faint creak echoed from above. I looked up. The trapdoor to the attic was open. My chest felt hollow. I could hear something shifting in the dark space above. I backed toward the corner of the room, my eyes locked on the ceiling. Then the sound stopped. The silence stretched slowly. A hand emerged from the attic opening. It was pale, almost translucent, with fingers far too long, bending at strange angles. It gripped the edge of the opening, as if testing its strength. I could not scream. My body felt pinned by the air itself. The hand retreated. The attic door swung shut. I stayed awake until the pale light of morning seeped through my curtains. When I opened my bedroom door, the hallway was empty, but on the wood, carved deep into the grain, were 4 words. We are inside. Unknown morning light did nothing to calm me. The words carved into my door were still there, each letter deep enough to catch my fingertip. No one else in the house mentioned them. My parents acted as if nothing had happened. My mother hummed softly while making breakfast, her face pale, but smiling in that distant way that felt wrong. I asked her if she heard anything last night. She said no. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she set a plate in front of me. Something in the air felt heavier than before, as if the walls were holding their breath. I left the house before finishing breakfast. I needed answers. The only place I could think to go was back to the library. Mrs. Ellis, the librarian, seemed surprised to see me again so soon. She hesitated, then motioned me to follow her deeper into the archives. The room smelled of dust and mold. She handed me an old box without saying a word. Inside were brittle pages, some handwritten, some torn from newspapers. One article caught my eye. The headline was barely legible. Local family missing, doors found locked from inside. The date was from 30 years ago. The details were brief. A family of 3 disappeared during the night. No sign of forced entry. Neighbors reported hearing voices outside the house before midnight. Another page was worse. It was a letter. The handwriting was shaky, words scrawled unevenly. They are no longer waiting outside. They are in the walls now. I hear them moving at night. They are learning my voice. I closed the box. The air in the archive felt colder. As I left the library, I noticed something strange. People on the street moved more slowly. Their faces were pale, their eyes distant. It was the same empty look I had seen in those who had tried to leave town. That night, I locked my bedroom door, stuffed rags along the bottom, and turned off every light. I lay in bed, listening. At 9:15, the voices started again. This time, they came from inside the house. The voices came from the hallway, low at first, like a conversation just out of reach. I pressed my ear to the bedroom door. The words were almost clear, but not quite. Then I heard my name. It was my mother's voice. She spoke softly, telling me it was safe, that I could open the door. Her voice was warm, the same tone she used when I was a child and woke from nightmares. I almost believed it. Then I remembered the way she had smiled that morning, the smile that never reached her eyes. I stayed silent. The voice grew sharper. It repeated my name over and over, each time a little louder, the tone twisting. Something heavy pressed against the door. The wood groaned. Then came a sound that froze my blood, breathing long, slow, deliberate. I stepped back, my eyes fixed on the door. The handle turned. It rattled hard, then stopped. Silence. I thought it was over. Then I heard a whisper right behind me. I spun around. The room was empty. The curtains hung still. Then I saw it. A pale reflection in the glass of the window. Not my face. Its head was too long. Its mouth stretched into a sharp curve. It was standing just behind me in the reflection. But when I turned, there was nothing there. The reflection smiled wider. A crack formed across the glass, thin at first, then spreading like veins. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering. The glass did not shatter, but the reflection was gone. Outside, the night pressed heavier against the house, and for the first time, I realized I might not survive until morning. I could not stay in that room another night. The rules had always been clear, but the rules were failing. Whatever was outside was now inside. I waited for sunrise. The moment the first light cut across the street, I packed a bag and drove. The road out of Millfield winds through the forest, twisting between walls of pine that rise so high they swallow the sky. I kept my eyes fixed on the pavement, hands tight on the wheel. After 30 minutes, I reached the sign that marks the town line. That was when I saw it. The sign was wrong. The letters were bent and faded, as if warped by heat. Beyond it, moved sharply to the left. When I turned, I saw something that made my chest hollow. Millfield. The same main street, the same houses. I had driven in a circle. I tried again and again. Each time, the forest seemed to stretch, twist, and fold, until I was back where I started. By the fourth attempt, the gas gauge was almost empty. I pulled over, my breath sharp in my chest. The air outside the car was unnaturally still. Not even birds called. Then I noticed something in the rearview mirror. Far back along the road, standing in the center of the pavement, was a figure. Tall, thin, head tilted. Its arms hung too long. At its sides, it was facing me. I turned the key, but the engine only coughed. My hands shook as I tried again. When I looked back in the mirror, the figure was closer. I did not see it move. Somehow, I made it back into town. I did not remember the turns. I only knew that when I parked in front of my house, the figure was gone. But the street felt different, quieter, like the town was holding its breath. I could not stop thinking about the figure on the road, the way it stood perfectly still, the way the town pulled me back, no matter how far I drove. That night, I went back to Mrs. Harlow's house. She opened the door before I knocked, as if she had been waiting. "You tried to leave," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp, almost angry. I asked her why it was impossible. "Because you are already part of this place," she said. "Once they call you by name, the road only leads back." I told her about the figure. She nodded slowly. "You saw one of the watchers. They are not the ones who take you. They are the ones who make sure you cannot leave." I asked her what they wanted. She hesitated. "The rules are not to keep them out. The rules are to keep you in." Her words sat heavy in my chest. She told me the town had made a bargain generations ago. The land here belonged to something older than the people who built their homes on it, in exchange for safety, for good harvests, for lives that continued quietly. The town gave them what they wanted. When I asked what that was, she only looked at me. "You will know soon enough." I left her house with the cold settling deeper in my bones. As I walked home, I realized the streets were empty. No lights burned in the windows. The air was heavy, almost wet. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I did not turn. I walked faster. The footsteps matched my pace. When I reached my house, I saw the front door was open. Inside, the lights were off, and my parents were standing in the dark hallway, facing me, their heads tilted just slightly to the side. They did not speak at first. My parents just stood there, the dim light from the street spilling across their faces. Their smiles were too wide, their eyes too still. I stepped back, toward the open door. But the air outside felt colder, heavier, as if the night itself was leaning in. Then my father spoke. "You should not have tried to leave." His voice was wrong. It was his tone, but there was no breath behind it, no warmth. My mother stepped forward. Her movements were slow, deliberate, like she was fighting against something unseen. Her hand reached toward me, her fingers trembling. "You are theirs now," she whispered. I turned to run, but the hallway seemed longer than before. The walls stretched, bending slightly inward. The air felt thick, pulling at me. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement on the ceiling. Pale shapes pressed against the plaster from the other side, long hands dragging slowly, following me. I stumbled into my bedroom, slamming the door. The carvings from before we are inside now seemed deeper, as if the letters had been freshly cut outside the window. The streetlights flickered. Then I saw them dot figures standing in a perfect line along the street. Tall, thin, heads tilted. Their arms hung too long, their fingers nearly brushing the ground. Their faces were smooth and pale, but I could feel their attention fixed on me. One by one, they raised their arms and pointed toward the house. The glass of the window cracked, spiderwebbing slowly from the attic above. I heard something dragging across the floorboards, moving toward the TRAPDOR. My phone buzzed on the desk. A single message appeared on the screen. "Time is up." The trapdoor creaked open. The last thing I saw before the light went out was a pale hand, impossibly long, reaching down into the room.